A golden couple with a sinister secret. In the late 1980s, the suburbs of Ontario, Canada were haunted by a predator who would become one of the most notorious figures in Canadian crime history. His name was Paul Bernardo. Outwardly, Paul was young, clean-cut and charismatic. When he paired up with his equally photogenic girlfriend, Karla Homolka, they seemed like a dream couple. Neighbours described them as charming, ambitious, and inseparable. But this was a facade. Behind closed doors, Bernardo harboured disturbing compulsions and violent urges, with Karla at his side, sometimes as an unwilling accomplice, sometimes as an active participant. Their partnership would escalate into a series of horrific crimes that left a permanent scar on Canadian society. The Scarborough attacks. Paul Bernardo was born in 1964 into what looked like a middle-class family, but was marred by dysfunction. His father was later convicted of sexual crimes, and his mother lived a withdrawn, depressive life. As a teenager, Paul began to exhibit controlling behaviours, a fascination with dominance, and disturbing fantasies about violence. By the late 1980s, young women in Scarborough began reporting a series of late-night attacks. The assailant stalked victims near bus stops or whilst walking home alone. He was dubbed the Scarborough Rapist by police. The attacks were violent and traumatizing, and while police had multiple eyewitness descriptions, even composite sketches that bore a strong resemblance to Paul, he managed to avoid capture for years. Meeting Karla Homolka. In 1987, Paul met Karla Homolka, a 17-year-old high school student. The two bonded instantly, and Karla quickly fell under Paul's spell. He dominated her psychologically and emotionally. She tolerated and eventually enabled his darkest fantasies. Their relationship was defined by control, secrecy, and complicity. Paul became obsessed with Karla's younger sister, Tammy, which would ultimately lead to one of the most shocking crimes in Canadian history. With Bernardo's obsession with Tammy in full swing, Karla Homolka helped him by breaking the blinds in her sister's window to allow Bernardo access. In July of the same year, he took Tammy across the border to get beer for a party. While there, Bernardo later told his fiancée they got drunk and began making out. According to Bernardo's testimony at his trial on the 24th of July 1990, Karla Homolka laced spaghetti sauce with crushed Valium she had stolen from her employer, Martindale Animal Clinic. She served dinner to her sister, who soon lost consciousness. Bernardo began to rape Tammy while Karla watched. Over the summer, he supplied Tammy and her friends with gifts, food, and sodas that had, quote, a film and a few white flecks on top. 6 months before their 1991 wedding, Karla Homolka stole the anesthetic agent halothane from the clinic. On the 23rd of December 1990, Homolka and Bernardo administered sleeping pills to the 15-year-old in a rum and eggnog cocktail. After Tammy was unconscious, Homolka and Bernardo undressed her, and Karla applied a halothane-soaked cloth to her sister's nose and mouth. It was Karla's wish to give Tammy's virginity to Bernardo for Christmas, and according to Homolka, Bernardo was disappointed by not having been Karla's first sex partner. With Tammy's parents sleeping upstairs, the pair filmed themselves as they raped her in the basement. Tammy began to vomit. The pair tried to revive her, then called 911, but not before they hid evidence, dressed Tammy, and moved her into her basement bedroom. A few hours later, Tammy Homolka was pronounced dead at St. Catherine's General Hospital without having regained consciousness. Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. With Tammy's death suspiciously ruled as an accident at the time, the couple continued their relationship and their criminal activities escalated. In June of 1991, 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey disappeared outside her home in Burlington. She had been locked out after missing curfew. Paul lured her into his car. For the next day, she was held captive at the couple's home, where she was drugged and assaulted. Tragically, she was killed shortly after. Paul dismembered and concealed her remains in concrete blocks that were later discovered in a nearby lake. Less than 1 year later, in April of 1992, 15-year-old Kristen French was abducted while walking home from school in St. Catherine's. Using a ruse, Paul and Karla forced her into their vehicle. Over 3 days, Kristen endured captivity before she was murdered. Her body was later found in a ditch. Cracks in the relationship. By late 1992, Paul's abuse extended towards Karla herself. He was controlling, physically violent, and emotionally cruel. The relationship was fracturing. Around the same time, forensic breakthroughs were catching up with Paul. DNA evidence collected from earlier Scarborough cases finally linked him to the assaults. In February of 1993, police arrested Paul Bernardo. When investigators questioned Karla, she initially presented herself as a battered spouse, claiming Paul had coerced her into participating. The videotapes and the controversial plea deal. What truly sealed the case against Paul were videotapes he had recorded of his crimes. These tapes, discovered later in 1993, showed not only Paul's actions, but Karla's active participation. However, before the tapes surfaced, Karla had struck a plea deal with prosecutors. In exchange for testifying against Paul, she would receive 12 years for manslaughter, avoiding murder charges. This deal became one of the most infamous in Canadian legal history. Once the tapes revealed the full extent of her involvement, the public was outraged, but it was too late. Bernardo's trial in 1995 led to convictions for the murders of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. He was sentenced to life in prison with a dangerous offender designation, meaning he will never be released. Aftermath. Karla served her sentence and was released in 2005. Since then, she has lived under various names, at times discovered by media and members of the public, sparking protests. Paul remains incarcerated in a maximum security prison. The case forced Canada to reconsider plea bargains, the treatment of accomplices, and the use of videotaped evidence in trials. The legacy of Paul Bernardo. The crimes of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka remain some of the most shocking and disturbing in Canadian history. What horrified the public most was not just the brutality of the acts themselves, but the chilling fact that they were carried out by a seemingly normal young couple living in suburbia. They looked like the couple next door, yet behind closed doors they were orchestrating unthinkable violence. The trial and its revelations ripped through Canadian society. Every detail that emerged, from the videotapes that showed the true extent of Bernardo and Homolka's cruelty, to the plea deal that allowed Karla to serve a light sentence in exchange for testimony, left people angry, disgusted and deeply shaken. Many Canadians felt betrayed, not only by the justice system, but by the very illusion of safety they thought they had in their own communities. To this day, the case has left scars. It sparked long-running debates about how the justice system handles plea bargains, how law enforcement investigates dangerous offenders, and how the media covers crimes that shake the national conscience. Bernardo is still behind bars, declared a dangerous offender, ensuring he will likely never be released. But the shadow of what he did continues to loom over the country. The Bernardo case is not just a story of crime, it's a chilling reminder that evil can hide in plain sight, behind a friendly smile or a charming personality. For the families of the victims, the pain has never truly gone away, and for Canadians as a whole, it stands as one of the darkest chapters in the nation's history, one that forced the country to confront the depths of human cruelty and the fragility of the trust we place in those around us.